Hello everyone, welcome to my playthrough of Fire Emblem 7, a bored RNGod completes Lyn Mode in 37 turns. This is based off of Mecha's playthrough of a similar title, and it has similar restrictions. The main goal is to beat the game, or Lyn Mode in this case, in as few turns as possible, with a couple of restrictions, which will be pretty obvious as you see in this chapter. The first is that every unit has 100% growths at all times, so I don't need to rig level ups, and every single time I level up, with any unit, all stats will be increased by 1. The second, as you can see here, is that RNG abuse, nothing is off the table. Anything that can be used to reduce turns will be used, and we use it here to complete the prologue in 4 turns rather than 5 by getting 1% crit on the boss, allowing us to seize on turn 4. Without the crit, we would have to kill him on turn 4 and seize on turn 5. We also have to rig her survival, which is semi-difficult because we have to dodge at least 3 out of 4 attacks, but it's not too bad. Lyn's avoid isn't too bad, and their axes aren't super good. Lyn, outlawed unit, is pretty mediocre, but she does have her uses, especially once she gets the Manic Caddy. She becomes decent, but not as good as our 2 Cavaliers, which we have here, Sane and Kent. You pretty much have to pick one or the other in terms of what you want to trade, because we only have 1 Knight's Crest. I picked Sane, pretty much just because he starts higher up on this chapter. There's really no real reason. I could have used Kent if I wanted to, so you can use Kent if you want to replicate the strategy. Yeah, they're pretty much the same. Kent has higher base speed, but it doesn't really end up mattering. Both units can double pretty much the same thing. You'll also see the extent to RNG abuse in this chapter. Sane gets 3 crits on the enemies using an Iron Lance, which obviously has quite a bit lower hit than Iron Sword. But it's not so bad, because, again, like, his crit isn't that bad, and most units have no crit evade, or very little crit evade. So they have... doesn't take too long to rig critical hits. But with this, we're able to complete it in 3 turns total and give most of the experience to Sane, which is quite nice. So chapter 2, this... If you count tiles, it's possible to beat this chapter in 4 turns. Sorry, 3 turns. But this wall is impossible to break in a single round of combat with either Sane or Kent. But I completed it in 3 turns anyway, because of a glitch called the unit stacking. Using this glitch, I'm able to put both Sane and Kent on the exact same tile, which allows them to break the wall in a single turn, which is very handy, as you can see there. So this allows us to beat the chapter rather, in 3 turns, which is very handy. One thing worth noting, however, is that it does require that we get 2 crits on the 2 enemies that directly prevent our movement to the throne, but that's not too hard to manipulate. You'll also notice that for a while there, Sane was invisible. That's just a side effect of the unit stacking glitch. Only one unit is supposed to be on one tile, so it doesn't really like rendering multiple on the same tile. So here we have chapter 3. We get Florina. She is a goddess. But in this chapter, I hate her, because we want to get the 2000 gold village, and the only way to do that, and beat the map in 3 turns, is to have Florina kill the boss. And that's really hard to do, because it requires a lot of crits from Florina, because she's not strong enough to, like, beat the boss in just 1 crit, for example. And it also means she has to dodge a bunch of hits, because she is very, very frail. I think she needs to dodge something like 5 attacks, which have decent accuracy because a lot of them have axes. Also, there's an armory here. The armory is worthless. There's nothing of value here. We don't actually visit a single armory in this entire run, which may not sound like much if you don't know much about how Lyn Mode works, but it actually does make at least 1 chapter very difficult. But that won't be for a little while. We also get Will. Will is extremely worthless, but he is good for chipping occasionally. But everything that he does is not imperative to beating the chapters in the turn limit that we get. It's mostly just... it means that we can avoid rigging as many crits, which is good. It saves me time, even if it doesn't save turns. So, let's talk about the boss kill. It's pretty annoying. She needs to hit 3 times with the Slim Lance, and she needs to crit at least twice with it. She cannot actually use an Iron Lance to kill the boss, even if we, what's the word? Even if we gave her one, because she's not fast enough to double. I guess if we did, but We could give her an Iron Lance and that would help, because it would mean she would have to only hit twice, but she would have to crit both of those times anyway, so it wouldn't be any easier to set up. But fortunately, because they don't both happen on enemy phase, it doesn't mean it means we don't have to rig as many RNs, which is great. It looks a lot cleaner. Speaking of clean, you might notice that the cursor movement is pretty slick. That's because it's a tool assisted. I went by frame and basically played through not as fast as possible, but like fast enough to make it look clean, and so there's no dead air. It's pretty much just movement. This does sort of mean that if you want to see exactly what's happening in terms of like trading and what I'm equipping to kill enemies, it's not as easy, but it doesn't really matter. Anything major is what I'm here for anyway. So I haven't even started talking about Chapter 4. That's because there's nothing to talk about. It's a defend map, it takes 8 turns, nothing I can do can speed that up. And it's really, really easy. This first couple turns it looks like there's a lot going on, and there kind of is, but you know, once we kill a lot of the enemies, which we can do on enemy phase fairly easily, it's mostly just grinding reinforcements, building up some experience for Sane and Florina, and not for Will, because he doesn't matter, and a bit for Kent as well. Though, to be honest, we could probably go by this entire playthrough without giving Kent any experience at all, but why would we want to do that? There's no reason. So we just recruited Dorcas. Dorcas is worthless. He enters combat twice in this entire playthrough, both of them in this chapter. He doesn't even actually get the Iron Axe that the bandit drops. Lyn gets it, and he never gets it traded to him because we have no need for his combat. He's just, yeah, he's slow, he's an axe user, he's strong, but who cares? We have infinite damage, effectively. Alright, so I guess I'll start talking a bit about the run as a whole. Like I said, this is inspired by Mecha's run at FE8. So credit to him. I didn't actually, check with him that it was okay to use this title. Hopefully he's okay with it. He seems like a pretty cool dude. I'd also like to talk about General Horace, because he helped me out quite a bit in at least one of the chapters. He didn't have to help me at all, but his assistance was greatly appreciated. One thing that happened earlier that I didn't point out at the time, because I was busy talking about other stuff, was Florina now has Kent's Iron Lance. I'm pretty sure this is entirely necessary, I don't actually remember, but Florina sees so much combat that eventually her Sling Lance is going to break regardless of how many crits we rig with it. And Kent only needs enough combat, Kent only sees enough combat that the Iron Sword he has is sufficient. We didn't need a little trade change to do it. We traded it between Kent and Will, and then between Will and Florina, but it was so lightning fast that you might not have even noticed it happened. It doesn't really matter. The point is Florina has it. Speaking of Florina, we would probably want to give that top set of reinforcements, the mercenaries, to her for a bit of experience. It's going to Lyn, which is not wasted necessarily, but it's better on Florina. But we need Florina down the bottom, not only to deal with the initial group of enemies that's attacking Natalie, but also because of a neat little strategy in terms of getting Sane the boss kill that means that he doesn't have to neglect the reinforcements that he's currently dealing with. Speaking of Lyn, she deals with the reinforcements quite well, thanks to her personal weapon, the Manicati, which I haven't at all talked about, except for a brief passing earlier. It's a really good weapon. It's just a shame it's locked to Lyn, because it has pretty decent might. It has 20 crit, which is great, and it deals effective damage to armors and to cavaliers, and that doesn't actually end up mattering this run, but it's still a nice little bonus that Lyn gets. It transforms her from a bad combat unit to a decent one, and while she doesn't have the movement to really be super relevant, it's still nice that we can use her for extra bit of combat that we don't have the units to spare elsewhere, and that'll be important later in the run, as you'll see. What else? Speaking of giving Sane the boss kill, I was a little bit worried that it would be too difficult to reach Sane to the appropriate level while also training Florina as much as I am. In my test playthrough, he actually only barely got to level 10, but as it turns out, he gets it pretty cleanly in the strategy I'm using. So that's not too much to worry about. I'll know a lot of other LTCs will give him like 12 level or something. I've seen as much as 14, but we don't need him to give that many when he has such high stats regardless. So this is the final turn. You'll see this little rescue chain we're doing where we sort of swap Sane and Florina. This means that not only does Sane get the boss kill with this neat little crit, but Florina gets the kill on the Brigand, which means that no reinforcement kill experience is wasted, so that's nice, it's very efficient. Dorcas has to scatter into the mercenaries because they'll thrash him, but yeah, that's easy enough to do. That's not like there's any terrain or he's in any danger from anyone else, so yeah. Also, this map technically takes 9 turns because defend maps always add an extra turn because of the weird way this game counts turns. Anyway, this is chapter 5. Most people do it in 3 turns, but I'm going to do it in 2. And I hate that I'm going to do it in 2 because it's really annoying for several reasons. We need Sane to take care of the boss because Florina can do it, but it requires like 2 enemy freeze crits and dodging the boss twice or something like that. I don't think she has to dodge twice, but she has to dodge at least once with a fairly accurate attack, and she has to crit twice, hit once. Kent can deal with the Brigand and the Mercenary just fine, but we also need Urk to crit the Archer. What else? That's all. But the other important thing about doing that is that we miss out on reaching that armory, which is below the Archer right now. And that armory is really unfortunate, because it's the only armory in the entire mode that sells javelins, and javelins are the only good item in the mode. They give 1-2 range to our cavaliers, which is really important. And while it's certainly not impossible to beat without the 1-2 range, it does make a couple chapters, including one in particular, quite a bit more difficult than they otherwise would be. Also, because Sane needs to crit the boss, and Urk needs to crit the Archer, means we need to manipulate 2 enemy phase crits, which is really frustrating and annoying, because it means that we can't just drop paths in between each round of combat. But luckily, it sort of turned out that we didn't need to burn that many numbers, which is very handy. So anyway, chapter 6 is an interesting one. You have to open 3 doors, and open 2 doors and step on 3 buttons. And there's a couple of things that need to be taken into account with this one. Notably the fact that we need to obtain at least 1 door key for a later chapter. Luckily there's 2 door keys in this map, which is very, very handy. If need be, we could have gotten Matthew down to open up the bottom door as well as the top door, but the fact that we don't have to have him do that means that we can have him open the chest. And the chest contains an angelic robe, which we aren't going to use, but contributes to our funds rank. I don't know if I mentioned before, I probably didn't, but the reason we want funds is because in Hector mode, when Lyn rejoins, she has a gem based on her fund rank from Lyn mode, and the only item of value that we have by the end of the mode that's worth anything is the angelic robe, because we use the Knight's Crest and we don't obtain the energy ring. So this just barely gets us over the edge, which is handy. So Sane just killed that soldier on enemy phase, which meant he got a door key, and the door key that Dorcas got from the village is now being used on the bottom door, and Florina is killing the enemy, and Kent is standing on the switch. This boss kill with Sane is pretty amusing. I was initially going to have Lyn attack the boss and not get a crit, in order to have Sane need to not get a crit to kill, but it turned out it was faster to get him to manipulate a crit than for Lyn to not get 2 crits. Just sort of funny. Anyway, you have chapter 7. This is the first map in which not having javelins sort of matters, but it doesn't really. It just means that we have to give the boss kill to someone else. So ordinarily we give it to Sane with a javelin, but we have to give it to Wrath instead. We can do that by boosting him over the mountain range with Florina and a new unit, Nils. Nils is an incredibly overpowered unit, and he is going to dance on every single turn in this playthrough because he's so good. So that's only kill boss. That means the chapter is over in 1 turn. And now we have 7x. This is the God chapter. There's so much going on that I'm probably going to miss a whole lot, but I'll try to cover it as best I can. So basically, first of all, the wall has 20 HP, and the only unit who has 20 damage, because we can't double or crit the wall, is Sane, and he can only reach the tile if he starts on the top left deployment slot. We'd love to have Nils there, but we can't move past the wall and break it on the same turn unless we have Sane start there. So we have Wrath carry Matthew to a very specific spot. He drops Matthew there because we want Matthew to open the chest, because there's a thief in the top part of the map who does not attack on enemy phase, and will only leave if the chest has been opened. So we have to open the chest. But critically, we also need to attack the archer. And the only way we can get the archer into a position where one of our free units can attack it is by putting Matthew there and baiting him to move to the very edge of the room, so that one of our mages can deal with it. So Lucius attacks this monk from the right. He's just barely in range of this cavalier from the right. Florina drops Lyn up to the top. She's just barely in range of all the enemies up the top. Now, here's a cool strategy courtesy of Horus. We have Wrath crit the boss. Now we have this soldier here who would attack Wrath at one range on enemy phase, which would make it impossible. But by dancing Kent a little bit further forward, we can have him rescue Wrath, which gives him just enough speed and attack to still kill the soldier without... I'm getting confused. He can still kill the soldier while rescuing Wrath, which is great. We also, you'll notice I skipped over it, Sane had to use that door key to open the door instead of Matthew, because Matthew was busy opening the chest, and that's why we needed that's why we needed the door key from chapter 6, rather than using Matthew, because he was busy elsewhere. Lyn gets a bunch of crits, which is handy but unnecessary, and I'm certain there's stuff I've missed. I'll probably add an auxiliary video that explains a lot of the stuff that I didn't cover, but there's just so much going on. This literally took me days to work out properly, and everything just so barely lines up with itself. It's a pretty cool strategy, and again, thanks to General Horus for giving me a general idea. We also got Lucius. I haven't even mentioned him. He's like Urk, but better at base, but we want to train Urk, because Urk has a higher magic cap, which means that his warp range in hard mode will be slightly higher. We can probably use Lucius too, but I'm not sure. Anyway, here you have chapter 8. A lot less interesting. This is a 2-turn, it's a rout. There's not a whole lot going on. We just sort of move Sane to the end group of enemies, and he kills the boss and murders everyone in enemy phase. Florina gets some good experience too, probably too much to be honest. It's kind of annoying how much the enemies want to prioritize her over Sane. But like I said previously, Sane still gets to level 10 regardless of this, so it's all good. It all works out in the end. There's a brigand that goes for the village, but for some reason he doesn't care whether the village has been saved or not. If there's a player unit in range, he'll still go for it. It's kind of weird. Like, that's not what I expected. I expected to have to save the village, but luckily we didn't have to. There's also a ballista that doesn't matter at all. It actually doesn't even attack Florina, hilariously enough. It goes for Nils, who is also at no risk of death. You'll notice I probably moved Wrath up next to Urk. I didn't check whether Urk could actually one around to the enemies, so he's kind of there for no reason. But it's not like it matters. It doesn't waste any turns. It just looks a little bit sloppy, I guess. I guess an interesting bit about this map is that all the final group of enemies have Reaver weapons. So what that means is that we have Sane equipped with a sword rather than a lance, because while he will have weapon triangle disadvantage against 2 enemies rather than 1, the brigands are so much less threatening than the mercenary is. So we want to not have weapon triangle disadvantage against his lance Reaver, rather than care about whether we have advantage over the brigands. What else? It's kind of amusing that the boss doesn't start on a fort when all of the other enemies next to him do. There's also an armor on this map that doesn't matter at all, because like I said, all armories in this mode are worthless other than the javelin one, which we can't even get to if we want to. So, anyway, that's chapter 8 and 2 turns. Not a whole lot to say about it. Pretty boring chapter. Chapter 9, this is where we get our Knight's Crest, but we can't use it, not only because Sane isn't actually at high enough level yet, but also because we just don't have the time. Actually, that's not even true, never mind. It's just because he's not at high enough level. My bad. Yeah, but it's okay, because this chapter he gets enough experience to get to level 10, and then some. This chapter has Fog of War, that really doesn't matter. Also, you'll just notice there was a weird pause. Something about frame perfect inputs. The game really doesn't like it, and it can freeze and slow down at certain points. I'm really not sure why. That's not an emulator specific issue or anything, to my knowledge. But yeah, there's fog in this chapter, but we actually clear it before it matters. It starts on turn 3, but we finish on turn 3 anyway. it seems like it would be possible to get Lyn over and finish the chapter in 2 turns, which would be nice, but it's just barely not possible. But it does mean we have a bit more time to train Kent, who the experience, like I said, doesn't really matter. But we also get to give some experience to Urk and Lucius. And like I said, we want to train Urk more than Lucius, but Lucius has a higher base staff rank on promotion, and like I'm pretty sure the higher cap isn't going to matter as much as the much higher base of Lucius in terms of staff, but considering it's 100% growths, it should be easy enough to get Urk to the point where he can use warps efficiently anyway. I'm reasonably confident. There's also a weirdness which you'll notice in this map when the fog actually starts, and that is that it's kind of hard to notice, I guess, unless you're looking for it, but it seems like it takes a little while for me to start like selecting units. Like I'll move my cursor over to them, but I won't select them for a little while rather than selecting them as soon as the cursor's over them. That's a weird side effect of Fog of War. Whenever there's fog, the game takes a little bit of time of like lag, I guess you could call it, to calculate everything, to make sure everything's in the right place. So it doesn't like you selecting things while it's trying to calculate. I assume it's calculating like vision and stuff. So, but what that means is that because of that lag, that's actually why the torch glitch works. If you've ever heard of that, where you can take control of enemies when they stand on a torch tile, it's because standing on a tile of torch just does weird things with that lag, I suppose. We also got, what's his face? I can't even remember. Wallace, this chapter. The fact that I can't remember his name should be a pretty good tell that he's not very good. He doesn't see combat at all. In fact, I don't think he moves at all in this entire playthrough. And by this entire playthrough, I of course mean, you know, this one chapter and this next chapter. Speaking of this next chapter, we get Promoted Sane. That's cool. Promoted Sane is nice. I assume most people, this is definitely true of myself, never promoted Sane or Kent during Lyn Mode when playing casually, so it's kind of weird, kind of cool to see Sane promoted. But if you use DLTCs, this is obviously pretty normal. This chapter has rain, which kind of matters but doesn't really. It just means that we have to do some more specific movement. It doesn't mean that we lose any turns or anything like that. One really unfortunate thing about this map is that there's an energy ring village to the right of your screen right there. It's really, really upsetting that we can't get it, because an energy ring would be quite helpful, but it would waste way too many turns to get, so it's not worth the turns that having extra strength would save, unfortunately, but that's okay. We also have Urk getting a bit of extra kill experience. This is mostly just assurance. I don't actually know how much he'll need at this point. I haven't planned that far ahead. It's more so that just in case he's super tight on experience, he's not, you know, screwed over. So we did this cool little rescue chain where Lyn moves across the entire map in a single turn. It's pretty neato. We wouldn't have had to put Lyn that close to the throne if it weren't for the rain. But that's okay, because the fact that we had the rain means that we get to see a cool little strategy, so that's nice. We also see a mercenary doing like 0 damage to Florina, which is very funny considering how scary mercenaries usually are, at least in FE6. I'm not used to playing Lyn Mode, so I'm not used to seeing them be such chumps. There's also an arena shop down there. It doesn't matter. Why would it matter? Even if there were good items, they'll leave at the end of the chapter anyway. So, because this is the last chapter of Lyn Mode, and items don't transfer. So here the rain starts. And Sane gets the kill. He got this kill and the previous kill without reading any crits at all, because we just had the extra turn because we needed to transfer Lyn all the way across, and he just hits them 4 times and beats them, basically. So, Lundgren is a chump. We seize on turn 3. He just barely misses out on a level, which is kind of unfortunate. And there you have it. Lyn hard mode completed in 37 turns. That is 3 turns faster than the current best I could find by General Horace. I saved a turn on the Prologue, I saved a turn on Chapter 5, and I saved a turn on Chapter 2. But the Chapter 2 turn save is really just like, it's only if you accept glitches, but here you go. Thank you so much for watching. It was pretty fun. I had a good time rounding this out and just sort of getting my feet wet into the LTCs and saving up a couple turns and making some cool strategies. So I hope you enjoy it. I intend to further the strategy into Hector hard mode, but that's quite a bit more difficult, which is fine. It just means it'll take me a long time to route everything. So, but it'll be cool if I can end up doing it. So, if I have the time. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I guess I'll see you next time.